grab your instrument. We're going to do some call and response improvisation over a jazz swing groove in B-flat concert. As we go, I'll introduce 30 ideas and concepts to inspire your soloing. I recommend focusing on one new idea per practice session. So hone in on a technique as the video plays on. You'll still learn other ideas orally, even if you're practicing something different with your fingers. So use this video to imitate my lines or use them for inspiration to create some jazz. But however you decide to use this video, the beat will never stop so we can learn in the groove. Here we go. Let's first of all look at the jazz groove subdivision. So we've got our beat 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. If we divide that beat in 3, we've got 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. And if we just play the first and third subdivision, we've got do va 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 do. So this groove is the underpinning. It underpins that jazz swing groove. So we're going to feel those 8s in a do va 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 do. And when we're looking at our sheet music, we're just assuming that the 8th notes are swung, so you won't see it written in triplets. So just feel that with me. Do va do va do va do va do va do va do. Notice I'm accenting the offbeats a little bit, just to give it a little bit of character and shape. 3 and va do va do va do va do va do va do. Awesome. So that's the swing groove subdivision, and we'll introduce some other rhythms as we go. Now let's look at the key center we're working in. We're in the key of B flat major. So this is the B flat major scale, 2 black notes on piano. And I want you to think of them in numbers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. And we're actually going to create a chord progression built off those numbers. So we're going to do a 2, 5, 1, 6 progression. So if I build a chord off the 2 chord, it looks like this. I build a chord off the 5 chord, it looks like this, F7. And a 1 chord looks like this. And our 6 chord looks like this. Now what we're going to do is we're going to substitute this 6 chord for a dominant 7 chord like this. And the reason is it's got this nice movement to the C minor. This tritone there goes to the C minor. So altogether our chord progression looks like this. 2, 5, 1, 6, the dominant 7. And that's what we're going to solo over. Now I've got a whole other video explaining some more interesting chord voicings. But for now, just know that I'll do some shell voicings or rootless voicings in the left hand. Like this. If you don't know what they are, go check out the other video or just focus on the right hand lines. Alright, let's start with our phrases. So I'll introduce an idea, I'll play an example, and then there'll be space for you to either imitate my example or use it as inspiration for your own lines, or however you choose to use it. Okay, so let's just look at the B flat major scale. Your turn. So just using the notes from the B flat major scale to create some lines. When you get to the G, play a B natural because that's a guide tone. B natural. Your turn. Just using B flat major. Okay, and the next idea is we're going to look at different rhythms. So this is triplets. Your turn. So just thinking of each beat as having 3 subdivisions in there. And just having a play with a triplet rhythm. dividing the beat in 3, we can divide it in 4, like taka 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 taka. And taka 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 taka. Okay, give it a go. Playing in semiquavers. Takes a while to get these patterns down. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 and 1. Dividing that beat in 4. Okay, now let's look at the idea of turns. So a turn is where you might have a note and you turn around by going to its neighbor and landing it back on it. So instead of going da 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 da, we're going da. And so it's just a nice kind of way of adding that little bit of color and movement. Now we can do a 2-note turn where we're landing on the same note and continuing on. So da 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 da. So that's where you might want to lead to a note below it. Or we can do a 4-note or 3-note turn where we land back on that same note. So we go 3-note turn and 2-note turn. 3 and. Alright, let's try it with our 2-5-1 phrases. Here we go. And okay, have a little play with turns. Another rhythm we can look at is crotchet triplets. So your turn. Da, 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 da. Skip the first notes. Okay, your turn. Okay, that's really great. Now, what we're going to do is look at different pitch ideas to build some solos over. So I've got a whole range here for us to dig our teeth into. We're going to start with major pentatonic scales, and the good thing about major pentatonic scales is it's a scale you can use over that whole progression. So that's the pool of notes we're drawing from. We've got this kind of flat 3 here, which is what I kind of think of as a major blues note. So it kind of flicks nicely into phrases. Let's make some phrases over the 2-5-1 progression. Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4. Notice I'm using that B natural when we get to the G7. Your turn. kind of going into some other ideas there, but basically using that major pentatonic as a guide. Okay, so that's one pentatonic scale we could use. We could also use the minor pentatonic scale or the blues scale. I'll show you the notes of those. It'll create a minor shade. So 1, flat 3, 4, flat 5, 5, flat 7, 1. And when I use the blues scale in jazz, I like to combine it with the major pentatonic scale, like this. Your turn. So a mixture of those minor blues elements and the major. And your turn. Another blues one. Okay, I wanted to use this point of the video just to have a little chat about modes. So you may have come across the idea of thinking in modes when improvising over 2-5-1s. Thinking in these modes: C Dorian over the minor 7, F Mixolydian over the F7, and B flat Ionian over the B flat major 7, and G Mixolydian flat 6 over the G7. Now, it's handy to know these modes, but I find when you're improvising over the 2-5-1, there's a lot of thought processes that you have to do to think a mode per chord. So, where I find the modes handy to know is it's actually spelling out the strong chord notes on the odd numbers of the scale. So it's handy to think about it in terms of knowing the guide tones. But at the end of the day, there's no change of scale. We're kind of using the same scale all the way through, apart from adding this B natural on the G. So instead of learning the guide tones by thinking modally, I find it's easier to learn arpeggios to learn your guide tones. What do I mean by guide tones? They're the strong notes of the scale. So we're going to practice our arpeggios, F and B flat and G7. Okay, your turn. Just working on arpeggios. Now we can take that arpeggio and bring it back down. Your turn. Okay, now I'm going to do some arpeggios that kind of change inversions. See different inversions in there, different directions, and so the whole idea of this exercise is not necessarily to perform it like that, but to get really familiar with your guide notes. Now, the next thing I wanted to look at is the idea of pivot arpeggios. So if you have a line that looks like this, you could pivot and put your pinky on this note and play the same notes down like this. So this line becomes, this line here becomes this, and this line here becomes this. And I find they're kind of a nice shape to get under your fingers to kind of get a nice sort of bebop phrasing there. Okay, so let's try some pivot arpeggios. One, a two, a two, three, and your turn. Okay, let's do some more pivoting. Another little technique we're going to look at is on our dominant 7 chords, instead of playing the root, 3rd, 5th and 7th, we're going to raise the root, and it gives us this diminished 7 sound, all minor thirds apart, same intervals apart. And it actually outlines the flat 9 note of the chord. So it's a great note to start delving into. And when we get to our G7, same thing, just raise the root. We get a G sharp diminished 7. So let's try our arpeggios, just adding that extra note in. And a 1, a 2, 3, and see how that one note makes such a difference, creates such a nice colour. And your turn. Okay, so now we've kind of got to know all those guide tones by doing those arpeggios. Now we can do the next step where we link them together. But like I said, if this is all new to you, I would just keep practicing those arpeggios until they're really familiar. But now I'm going to do some phrases where I link between the strong notes. So, difference between your turn. The idea is that we're getting the strong notes on the beat. On beat 1, 2, 3 and 4. Your turn. Simplest thing to do is to go up the scale and all those notes kind of land on strong beats when you just do it like that. Okay, I'll try and change it around a bit. Okay, so that's the idea of linking the guide tones. Now we can also do chromatic approaches into the guide tones. Extend the line a bit now. Got a written example, and that's all chromatic approaches into the target notes. I'll try this other line I've written. let's explore the idea of bebop scales. So in these scales, we're thinking sort of in our B flat major as normal. I'm just going C to C, but we add one note between the flat 7 and the root. And what's really cool about this is it makes it an 8-note scale, which makes it nice and clean to go up and down, because now all the chord notes are on the strong beat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Now we do the same thing with the F7. So you can hear how that extra note just makes it symmetrical. Now with the B flat, we already have a major 7. We don't want a flat 7, so we actually just raise the 5th. So 3 and. And with the G7, we'll do our flat 6, but we're still doing our dominant movement, our bebop movement of the dominant 7. 2, 3, and. Yeah, so they're bebop scales. So really, you can think in terms of those scales, or you can think about the notes that they bring. So I'm just going to try some phrases that play on those kind of major 7 sounds, and when I'm on the B flat major 7, that sharp 5 sound. So here's a phrase for you. And. So you have a turn. Just adding that linking note between the root and 7. Extend the line a bit more. Let's do one more with bebop scales. Those bebop scales just lead you to notes that you wouldn't normally think about in improvisation. Now the next thing we're going to do, it's all about those target notes again, but it's called enclosures. So we're going to take a target note like E flat, the 3rd of the C minor chord, and we're going to go above, below, and hit the note. We could go 2 above, 1 below, 2, 3. We could also do the 3rd of the F7. So you can do all sorts of combinations of trapping that note. Okay. Now the key thing with this is that we don't want our enclosure to start on the beat. We want it to land on the beat, okay? So you've got to think of them as like an approach into the strong beat of the bar. So if we go 1, a 2, a 1, a 2, 3. Your turn. idea of enclosures. Now the next few ideas that we're going to look at are scales that we can use on the dominant 7 chord to create a tenser sound. Now why do we do that? The idea of this 2-5-1 is we have tension, release, tension, release. So because it's naturally giving us tension, we can also add different extensions to make it tense. So if I just look at it in a chord point of view, an altered chord to the major 7, altered chord to the minor 7, altered chord. So if you want to dive deeper into that, I've got another video just explaining how it works from a harmony perspective, but let's talk about how we're going to replicate that with scales. Well, there's a whole bunch of scales that we can use that outline a bit more tension on the dominant 7 chord. So probably the easiest one to start off with is the whole tone scale. So if we look at the F, the whole tone scale is just all tones apart. Because of the nature of this, we can build triads, and they're all augmented triads. And if we do our G7, same notes. So there's our whole tone scales. So let's try some phrases using a whole tone scale. Your turn. Your turn. I might try some of those augmented triads and great work. Okay, now let's look at another scale we can use. Well, we can actually think of the 1 chord as a harmonic minor scale. But instead of playing that on the 1 chord, we're actually going to play it on the 5 chord, so F to F. And if we like, there's also a bebop note we can add. So if we're actually thinking in terms of that scale, it's adding that extra note there, but we'll do it on the F. So I like that kind of feel of it. We've got these this cluster of notes there, and then those notes there. And then when we land on the B flat, we want to keep it major, just to outline that. And in G, we'd be thinking as the chord that it's going to, the C minor, and our bebop note. And go G to G. Alright, so now we'll try using those bebop scales in phrases. A1, A2, A1, 2, 3, 4. bebop scale. Great! That was a harmonic minor bebop scale. Let's have a look at the altered scale. So the altered scale, if we look at it on F7, we've got our root, third and seventh, and instead of playing any other notes of that B flat major scale, we're altering every other note. So we go. So we've kind of got the start of the bebop scale and then a whole tone scale at the end. So I kind of think of it as there's my root and third and those two notes in there, and then the rest is whole tone. That's kind of how I visualize it. So if I look at it in G, we've got that movement, and then the rest is whole tone scales. So that's kind of a nice, easy way to think about it. All right, let's try it in the phrase. A 1, a 2, 3, and. Your turn. And again. One more. Okay, another option for that dominant 7 chord. Remember how we had our F sharp diminished 7 from those arpeggios? There's actually a scale that goes with that, the diminished scale. So tone, semitone, tone, semitone, tone, semitone, tone, semitone, tone, semitone, tone, semitone. Okay, but I'm thinking in terms of F to F. So again, we've got that sort of shape there. And I can kind of look at it as leading into those strong arpeggio notes. Remembering I'm thinking in terms of flat 9 there. Okay? So if I was in G, I've got that shape there, and sorry, add a different note there. So always leading semitone into those guide tones. That gets you the diminished scale. Now there's lots of great things about diminished scales, but one of the coolest things is that there's actually only 3 shapes. So although they might start off different notes, you only need to learn 3 pools of notes. Alright, so let's look at the diminished scale in a context of the phrase. 1, a 2, a 1, a 2, 3, 4. I'm going to use my technique of just slipping into the arpeggio notes. Just to really get that shape down. Your turn. Now I'll try and think of it as a scale. Okay, another way we can create tension. We can think of these F7 chords in upper structures. So in my left hand I've got an F7, the right hand I'm going to play an F sharp minor, or a G, or an A flat, so all these different triads. I'll play them down here, they're a bit nicer. Now it sounds a bit funny without context, but to give you an idea, and so tension and release, and okay, so I'm going to think in terms of arpeggios for those upper structure triads in the line. So in this example I'm going to think D major when I get to the F7, and I'm going to think E major when I get to the G7. I've got another video explaining upper structures, so check it out if you're interested. A 2, 3, and so it kind of gets you to other shapes, which is kind of cool. Let's do another example just using those chords. Your turn. Might try some different chords now. The flat 5 over the F7, so it'll be B major. Chords again, and with all these it's all about kind of sticking the landing, just kind of resolving on a nice tone. Alright, so that was the idea of doing upper structures to create tension. Now there's also the concept of playing outside. So in this example, I'm going to try thinking in terms of A major, even though the chord progression's in B flat major. So just shifting down a semitone. So let's try that. 2, 3, and try the same thing but with descending phrases. So thinking B flat, A, now in this one I might think of F sharp minor pentatonic, and think sequentially, so coming down B flat major pentatonic and A major pentatonic. Your turn. Alright, well, that was a lot of ideas for how you can change pitch. And just a reminder, the idea is not to nail them all in your first pass of this video. Of course you can if you're advanced, but I'll just focus on one of those ideas and come back when you need a refresher on something different. Okay, now we're going to look at ideas of using texture to create interest in improvisation. So texture refers to how many notes play together at the same time. So for example, we could have 2 notes playing at the same time. We could have big, thick chords or comping voicings. And we can also think about single lines as a lighter texture. Alright, so let's look at double stops. I'm doing is I'm thinking in terms of kind of the B flat blues, but also kind of major pentatonic there. And I'm making phrases with the tonic hammering over the top there. So let's try it in the progression. 1, a 2, a 1. Adding an upbeat to this. Your turn. Need a strong pinky for this. So just practicing double stops. Your turn. Now double stops doesn't always have to be on the tonic. I'll do some on the 6 now. Mixture of both. Okay, another thing we could do is think in harmonic intervals. So thinking in thirds. Your turn. And we can think in 6 as well, so your turn. Now I'll do this little blues lick I've written out using a combination of thirds and 6. Your turn. And another one. Good. So that's the idea of harmonic intervals, just playing 2 notes together. Now we'll do octaves. Okay, your turn. So you have to kind of work on octaves as a separate technique. Get that pinky really strong. Thinking a major pentatonic there, a bit of blues, just kind of keeping it simple because it's a hard technique to play. And go. Giving it a shake. So as well as thinking in octaves, we can think melodic with our comping ideas. So one of the simple things we could do is, with our octave phrases, we can add notes in between, and we can play them at the same time as our comping chords in the right hand, in our left hand. 1, 2, 3, and. Your turn. another comping pattern to show you here. And we got so I'll just break it down and then I'll give you some call and response. What I'm doing is I'm thinking in terms of octaves, and I'm just kind of filling the octave with different notes. Now I've got a video explaining this a little bit further, but for now, just thinking about what the actual chord voicing is. So if I've got an F7, I might add the 3rd and 7th, the flat 9. There's actually a great technique you can use by alternating 6 chords and diminished 7 chords, which works great up the scale. And also try using diminished 7s to harmonise those blues notes, the major blues note and the minor blues note. It takes a bit of practice and you'll get to know how it works, but this is just to expose you to new ideas. 1, R2, R1, R2, 3, 4, R. Turn. Just thinking in terms of the octave and filling in between. Your turn. Notice I'm actually giving this sort of double grace note in the left hand as well. Okay, so that's the idea of using comping as your melodic idea. Now we're going to look at some mindsets to think about. So not a particular technique, but just thinking in terms of how you might approach a phrase. So we're going to start off by thinking about call and response. And I'll challenge you to think about developing a phrase that you can actually repeat and create a variation on. And just by doing this, you're really training your brain to get intentional about what you're playing. So here's one. Same thing with a bit of a variation. Your turn. Another thing is, we're doing all our phrases off the first beat or the upbeat or just off the first beat. But if you find that you're struggling to kind of, add gaps into your phrasing, I encourage you to think about starting at different points. So let's do some phrases based off the 3 and the 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. And 1, 2, 3, 4. Your turn. And you don't have to literally use those particular rhythms, but the concept is to experiment with different starting and ending points of the bar so you can add more gaps into your phrasing. So starting off different points will help you achieve that. concept we can think of with our soloing is thinking in sequences. So that's when you might take a pattern and repeat it up the scale. You can do it in 3s or 4s. And these are great devices to use just to kind of create a little bit of interest. Stop you going up and down mindlessly. Kind of means that you'll sort of go back and forth and things like that. So let's try some phrases with sequences. A1, A2, A1, A2, 3, and. Your turn. Another thing we can do, if you're getting stuck with going up and down the scale, is thinking in finger patterns. So let's look at this pattern where we're going 4, 5, 2, 4, 3. We can start it on different notes. And that might be just something that you practice in isolation to get your fingers working in something that you're not familiar with. So let's try it in the phrase. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2. Notice I changed the placement of that last phrase. We can play it on the beat or off the beat. Let's try one that's 3, 4, 2, 1. Try 4, 3, 1, 2. I'm struggling with that one. Might I need to practice a bit more. And let's finish with 2, 1, 4, 2, 3. See, there'll be awesome things to practice just to get your hands working in different shapes. Now in this next exercise we're going to start every bar on the 3rd of the chord. So it's a good way to train yourself to really hammer home that guide tone on the strong beat, and also give yourself a restriction to play with to force you to solo in ways you're not used to. Couple more phrases. Really have to think about this one. See, my comp chord stops when I'm thinking too much. Alright, one more time. Alright. Okay, and the final idea I've got for you is thinking about quoting melodies of familiar tunes. So I really like this exercise because it kind of makes you really think intentionally about what you're playing and works your ear, like works the ability to work out songs by ear. So we're going to start with I've Got Rhythm, starting off the 5th note. octaves. And don't worry if the melody doesn't match the chord progression. It's more about the exercise of trying to work it out by ear. Straight note chaser. To try oleo now. Now we'll do petito, which actually goes with this chord progression. Quoting melodies is a great exercise and really fun too. Okay, so that was 30 ideas to add to your 251 repertoire. So like I said, just use this video to target particular ideas and come back for more if you need some more inspiration. If you want to check out the links in the description, there'll be some more resources there to support you. But otherwise, thanks so much for following me in this exercise, and I'll see you in the next video.